A baby was sentenced to death before he could even cry. In ancient Egypt, around the time when the New Kingdom era was rising, Egypt was one of the most advanced civilizations on earth. Pharaoh was not just a ruler, he was seen as a living god. His authority shaped religion, politics, and daily life. But then fear entered the throne. A growing population of Hebrew slaves lived in Egypt, building cities like Pithom and Ramesses, massive storage cities confirmed by archaeological findings. Pharaoh believed something dangerous. If they grow too many, they may rise against us. So he gave a brutal command recorded in history. Every male Hebrew child must be killed at birth. But history also shows something else. When oppression increases, stories of deliverance begin. One Hebrew mother hid her child for 3 months. When she could no longer hide him, she sealed him in a basket coated with tar and pitch, materials commonly used in ancient Nile boats, and placed him into the Nile River. The Nile was not peaceful. It was dangerous, full of currents and wildlife, and also the center of Egyptian life and worship. That river became the path of survival. That baby was Moses. And here is where history becomes strange. He was discovered by Pharaoh's daughter, likely Hatshepsut or a royal princess from the 18th dynasty period, depending on historical interpretation. This means the child targeted by genocide was raised inside the royal palace itself. He grew up in one of the most powerful courts in ancient history, learning Egyptian writing systems, hieroglyphics, military strategy, governance and leadership, royal education reserved for elites. But internally, he carried a hidden identity crisis. Hebrew by birth, Egyptian by upbringing. And that tension would later collide with destiny. One day, Moses saw an Egyptian beating a Hebrew slave. Historically, Egyptian labor systems were harsh, especially on foreign slaves used in construction projects. Something inside him broke. He killed the Egyptian and buried him in the sand, an act that forced him into exile when it became known. He fled to Midian, a desert region east of Egypt, inhabited by nomadic tribes. There, everything stopped. No palace, no record, no recognition. For 40 years. Historically, Midian was a harsh desert environment where survival depended on shepherding and scarce resources. Moses became a shepherd, a prince learning silence in the desert, until one day near Mount Horeb, also called Sinai in many traditions, something happened that changed religious history forever. A bush was burning, but not consumed. Fire in ancient symbolism often represented divine presence. From that fire, a voice called him by name. Moses. It was not random. It was a commissioning. God was sending him back to Egypt. Moses resisted. He questioned his ability, his speech, his worth. But destiny does not wait for confidence, only obedience. So he returned and stood before Pharaoh, one of the most documented power systems in ancient history, and delivered a demand that challenged the entire Egyptian worldview. Let my people go. Pharaoh refused. So Egypt entered a series of events later called the plagues. Each one directly challenged Egyptian gods and symbols of power. The Nile, life source, turned to blood. Darkness covered the land, challenging Ra, the sun god. Economic and environmental collapse followed. History and theology intersect here in one of the most debated ancient events ever recorded. Until the final night, Israel stood trapped. Sea in front, army behind, no escape. Then Moses raised his staff. And according to the biblical record, the waters divided. Whether understood theologically or debated historically, what followed was the survival of a nation that should have been erased. Egypt's army did not return, and the empire that once controlled life and death lost its grip. Moses never became a king in Egypt, but he became the voice that broke Egypt's power. He never stayed in the palace, but he led an entire nation out of slavery. And the baby once meant to be erased became the reason a nation remembered freedom. History calls it the Exodus. Faith calls it deliverance. But the deeper truth is this: God does not always remove danger immediately. Sometimes he preserves destiny inside it. So the question is not just about Moses. It is about you. What if what tried to destroy you is actually where your purpose was hidden? Because sometimes the same waters meant to end you become the path that carries you forward. If the story opened your eyes, don't just watch and move on. Like this video if you believe God still delivers people today. Subscribe for more rare Bible stories that most people never hear. And comment, I trust God's timing, because the same God who wrote Moses' story is still writing yours.